A year ago, I picked up this awesome 1989 ESP MM-250 or 270. And I knew it was a rare and collectible guitar as a big Metallica and Kirk Hammett fan, but there's quite a lot I didn't know about it. So it inspired me to do a video on some of the history of this model. If that's something you're interested in, then stick around for a short history of the ESP Zorlac guitar.
Where's Ride the Lightning? Where's Ride the Lightning?
I first started using ESP guitars way back in 1987. I kind of discovered them through my friend who had an endorsement with ESP at the time, and he told me that ESP was interested in working with me and would make me anything I wanted them to make. So I was really happy about that, and so I got to go to the ESP factory in New York, and I said, okay, this neck, put it on this body with this pickup configuration, make it black, put skull inlays on it. I'm there. And like 8 months later, I had that guitar, and that's my Scully guitar that I've been playing forever and ever.
The Zorlac name does not originate from ESP at all. It is the name of a skateboard manufacturer founded in Dallas, Texas in the 1970s by Jeff Newton. The brand was known for its punk aesthetic, and a number of boards featured the artwork of one Brian Schroeder, aka Pushhead. Pushhead's artwork would go on to be well known and closely associated with Metallica, with his art being used notably on And Justice for All's One single cover, and on countless posters, t-shirts, and various other pieces of merchandise. Both James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett were keen skateboarders in the 1980s. Drawn to the artwork of Pushhead, Kirk adorned his new custom ESP guitar with the Pushhead Zorlac sticker beneath the bridge, and thus christening it as the Zorlac guitar. This nickname would also serve to distinguish it from later models. The true ESP name was the MM-250 or 270, which I've understood to stand for Metallica Mirage, the Mirage being a model already in ESP's lineup, and the 250 or 70 denoting the price of the guitar in Japanese yen, either 250 or 70,000. In a November 1988 edition of Guitar World magazine, a 25-year-old Kirk Hammett is featured and mentions owning an ESP no-name neck-through custom guitar with a Floyd Rose bridge, which if correct indicates the Sinclair bridge did not last long at all, given that the interview was likely earlier in 88 and he would have received his guitar late in 87, given it took at least 8 months to build. The no name and no serial number, again courtesy of the NAMM display, means the guitar could effectively be considered a prototype. As a side note, the magazine outlines that Kirk also owned 9 other guitars at the time, namely his original Gibson Flying V, a black Randy Rhoads Flying V, a Fernandez V, as well as a Fernandez black and red set of Stratocasters, a Fender Strat, and a Gibson Les Paul Standard, as well as 2 recently acquired Tom Anderson guitars, one of which he is featured with on the cover. A mere 10 guitars in total, a relative drop in the ocean of the hundreds of guitars he would later go on to own. What did become clear though was that he'd quickly favour the ESP, and Kirk played it heavily on tour thereafter, the guitar being featured in now iconic performances from the Live in Seattle show on the Damaged Justice tour, which is featured in the Live Shit Binge and Purge box set released in 1993. So let's do a specification rundown of both the production guitar and Kirk's guitar. Beginning with the headstock, famously they both have the Jackson style headstock, which is one of the distinguishing features of the Zorlac guitar versus later models. ESP presumably adapted this headstock to the now knife style headstock in order to avoid legal concerns with Jackson. Both have the ESP logo on the headstock, whereas the production guitar has the custom decal and Kirk has his own name written on the headstock. They both have the locking nut and then a 24 fret rosewood fingerboard with the famous skull and crossbone inlays. Again, a difference on the production guitar is that there is an inlay on the first fret, whereas Kirk's guitar, the inlays begin on the third fret. It's also worth noting that the orientation of the inlays are vertical, whereas all later models were horizontal. Again, another key distinguishing feature of what makes a Zorlac guitar versus just a regular KH2. To many, these skulls and crossbones may look quite cheesy, almost cartoon-like. However, it is interesting to note how similar they are to some gravestones that I have seen in Scotland from the 18th century. On the 24th fret, Kirk's guitar again differs a little bit from the production guitar, where you can see just two skulls inlaid and no bones, whereas on the production model there are skulls and crossbones on the 24th fret as well. Thereafter, the guitars become very similar. Both have a super strat style body in the ESP Mirage styling. They also have dual EMG pickups. In the case of this production guitar, an 81 in the neck and an 85 in the bridge. Kirk's guitar has dual 81 EMGs. It's interesting that this has an 85 in the bridge and may be unique to this guitar. It's unclear whether other Zorlacs also have 85s or if they mostly ship with dual 81s. The bridge on this guitar is a Floyd Rose original. Now, this early photo of Kirk's guitar, you can see clearly that he had a top-mounted Sinclair bridge and not a Floyd Rose. The pictures of Kirk's guitar from the NAMM show display show the Floyd Rose bridge, and almost all photos of him playing with it also showed the Floyd Rose. What would seem clear then was that sometime after he received the guitar in 1987, it was quickly rerouted and a Floyd Rose was put in instead of the Sinclair bridge. Both guitars have the same three-way selector switch, and then a neck and bridge volume, and then a master tone for the knobs. On the reverse side of the guitar, you can see the neck-through construction, and in this case you can see the seam lines of the two wings of the guitar glued onto the center neck. The Zorlac featured in this video was built in May of 1989. I believe this is likely the first production run of that guitar. Logically, however, there may have been a few prototypes built ahead of this run, and they would represent some of the rare Zorlacs of all, if they're out there. This first run featured a Floyd Rose bridge and black painted neck with an ESP promotional poster. Sometime thereafter, the guitars were manufactured with a natural finish neck, leaving the body and the face of the headstock black, in keeping with Kirk's own guitar. There are also a few iterations that were still built with a Sinclair bridge instead of the Floyd Rose. There's some uncertainty and debate even whether the 270 versus 250 model designation and pricing was for the early black painted neck guitars only, or for those that featured the Sinclair bridge versus the Floyd Rose. It may just have been a matter of ESP changing pricing at a given point. I guess we'll never know, and some of this knowledge may be lost to time. But if you do know, then please do reach out or leave a comment. Although Kirk clearly enjoyed the guitar, the Zorlac actually led a relatively short touring life. I would contend that there were a number of reasons for this. As stated, the guitar was effectively a prototype, and later iterations had changes which can presumably have only been more in line with Kirk's wishes. For example, a factory-fitted Floyd Rose, as well as horizontal orientated inlays, as well as the inclusion of an inlay on the first fret. The other important change was that ESP began making many of their models with their own knife-style headstock design, which avoided any potential legal concerns with Jackson. In around summer of 1991, ESP ended production of the MM-250-270 and began making the MM-290, incorporating many of the aforementioned specifications, and with an updated price, 290,000 yen. I'm aware of early examples of the MM-290 having been built in September of 1991. The custom decal on the headstock remained. These two are rare and collectible versions of the guitar. The KH signature on the headstock and the later KH2 model name would only come later in approximately late 93 or 94. This means the MM-250 or 270 Zorlac guitar was only in production for a little over 2 years in ESP's custom shop. Exact production quantities I do not know, but they are presumably limited, perhaps only 50 to 100 guitars. What remains clear though is that ESP got it near enough right the first time round, and had made Kirk an excellent guitar that would be the beginning of a relationship which turns 40 next year, and which has led to many amazing iterations of the guitar with various designs, colours and price points. Let's all be happy he took up his friend's advice back in 1987. I would like to acknowledge friends and collectors who helped with the information in this video. Please do share any further knowledge you have about the Zorlac guitar, and engage more generally by leaving a comment. Thanks so much for watching.